This is a walkthrough of creating a 6th generation Pedigree family tree in Microsoft Excel that will print on a single landscape page. This particular layout has a name and date fields. If you prefer images in your tree, we can do something like this. Now, I can't squeeze in images for every generation. This particular layout gets an image in for the first 4 generations. If you don't need the dates, it could look something like this. And if you really want the classic plain format of names only, it will look like this. If you want a shortcut, we offer the templates I've just shown you in a single bundle for the price of a decent cup of coffee. If you want to do it yourself, let's get on with it. The first thing we're going to do is give ourselves a new blank page. Step 1 is to set it to landscape mode. Let's go up to File, Print, and here the default for a new sheet is actually Portrait, which isn't what we want. We want to set this to the landscape orientation. And when we go back to the page, you'll now see dotted lines that represent the printed area for landscape. We're going to work with columns A to K, but we are going to change the width of these columns. Don't worry about scribbling notes about the column widths. I've got everything documented in a complimentary article on our website. This is the article. There's a link in the description below. I'm on step 2 and I've got the precise column widths for you to set. So first I set column A to a width of 1. So I'm highlighting column A by clicking on the letter. I right click, choose column width, and change from the default. I put in a 1, click OK. The next columns I'm setting are for the name fields. These are B, C, D, F, H, and J. So I'm clicking on column B. I'm holding down the control key because I want to set multiple columns at the same time. So holding down the control key, B, C, D, F, H, and J. Now I've got those all selected. I'm right clicking on any of those columns, choosing column width, and I'm upping this from the default to almost double, nice wide column of 17. I'm going to set columns E, G, and I to a width of 3. So I'm going to highlight column E, holding down the control key, highlight G, highlighting I, right click, column width, and setting this to 3. And finally, I'm setting my column furthermost to the right, which is column K. I'm setting that to column width of 8. That is all, as you can see with the dotted line. This is all within the printed border. If your machine is different to mine, it's possible that with these widths, your column K is falling outside the printed boundary. In that case, you simply need to reduce by a small size some of these columns and see how that looks. See if K has now been brought inside the boundary. If not, now that we've got the page layout set up, we're going to create the first of our person boxes. We're going to create a border around cells B16 and B17. So I'm going to highlight both cells. I'm going up to the Home menu, expanding the border options, and I'm choosing this thin outside border. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the font type. The default font in the current versions of Microsoft Excel is Calibri. I think it used to be Arial in some older versions. Both of those fonts are quite wide in terms of the letters. I want a more narrow font so that most names will fit within the box, that I don't have to truncate names. Microsoft provides several narrow fonts. The one that I like best is called Bandschrift Condensed. I've got the cells highlighted. I'm going up here to the font type in the Home menu, expanding that. Just type in BAH N to get me the band shrift fonts. As you can see, there's several of them, and I'm going to choose this one here, band shrift condensed, for the name fields. Just to show you what that looks like, I will put in a name. You can see that long first name, long surname fits nicely within the field. For the cell below the name field, I like to put in the dates. Let's say it's 1970 and no death date. I keep the name field left justified. That's by personal choice, but I like to have the date field centered. And then I also like to have it in a slightly lighter font than the name field, just for the look and feel of this when it prints out. So for the date, I like to set it to band shrift light condensed. The next step is something that you shouldn't skip over. Suppose that name was even longer, so Postlethwaite was Postlethwaite Wiggins Botham. As you can see, that is now spilling over into the adjacent cells, which is not a good look and feel for when we print this out. I want long names to be truncated so everything fits within the cells that I've defined. There's several ways to ensure this. The way that I find is both simple and reliable is to go to the adjacent cell, the cell right next to B16, and put in a space. So I'm just typing space, and that ensures that the B16 cell doesn't spill over. I'm not going to have that problem with my date cell, but suppose you like to have geographical information inside this field, then you're probably going to want to have the space in C17 as well. So that means that these four cells go together. And as we're going to speed up this process by copying our formatted name fields to our other ancestors, it's useful to get that first set of cells formatted in the way that you like. So if you want your name to be centered, do it now. Finally, I'm going to set the color for a female person in this tree. For females, I tend to choose a light orange, males a light blue. Highlighting B16, I'm going up to the background color here, the fill color, and I am choosing this color here, which is orange accent 2. I'm also going to set a background color for the date field, and I like to choose a very light gray. So I'm expanding the fill color here, and I am choosing this gray accent 3. Now we're going to create the first of our paternal ancestors, in other words, the father. We're going to use copy and paste to speed up this process. The important point is to make sure you copy 4 cells and not 2. So you get the cells that have the spaces that are adjacent to our name and date fields. I'm holding down the Shift key and highlighting the range of B16, C16, B17, and C17. I'm copying them with Control C, and then I'm going to place my cursor into cell C8 and I'm pasting with Control V. The point of this is that I've also brought over these little fields with the spaces in them, and that will ensure that the truncation works for very long names. As this is a male ancestor, I am going to change the color of the name field. I've got the name field highlighted now. I'm going up to the fill color and I'm choosing this light blue, the blue accent 1. And I am now going to clear out the placeholder name. I'm leaving the date color the same. I'm just clearing out the placeholder for the date. So now I have a formatted male ancestor. I am now going to copy these 4 cells to all the male ancestor fields. So switching back to the companion article, we're going to copy the 4 cells in turn into each of these ancestor areas. We just work our way down this list. So having selected the 4 cells, Control C, insert into D4, D20, F2, F10, F18, and F26. H1, H5, H9, 13, 17, H21, H25, and H29. We do have one final set of ancestors to go, but we leave those for the moment. And now I'm going to create the first maternal ancestor, which is the mother. I'm just going to clear out these placeholder details. To create the mother, I'm going to copy the 4 cells, Control C, and I'm going to paste that into the C24 cell. So I can now copy this maternal ancestor into all the other maternal ancestor areas with the exception of the 6th generation. I've got the cells listed in the companion article. You will find them here. I've selected the 4 cells, Control C, copy, cursor into D12 and Control V. Similarly for D28, F6, F14, F22, and F30. And then these ones are pretty easy. It's just into the spaces that are left. So that is the formatted areas for the 1st through 5th generation. I now want to sort out the 6th generation, which is formatted a little differently in order to fit all of this into the one page. So this is going to be pretty easy. I'm just going to copy cell H1 to get that coloring, and I'm going to paste it into, starting at J1, every second cell all the way down. And then I'm going to take cell H3 and copy that for the maternal name coloring. And that's it. Remember, we're going for a look like this. So we've got these vertical lines and horizontal lines. And we'll start with this set here. Above the home person, we want to create a single vertical line aligned at about halfway across the name box. To insert a line, we're using the Shapes feature. Go to Insert, Illustrations, Shapes, and choose this line here without any arrows. So then click into the general area of where you want the line to be. It doesn't really matter because we're going to move it, and draw down your cursor to have a vertical line. The default color seems to be a light blue, so the first thing I want to do is change that to black. So up here, I'm just going to choose this dark one line. I'm going to align the top of the vertical line with the bottom of cell B8. So just use the grid lines to help you. And then my best tip for you is not to use drag and drop, to use the arrow keys. So while you've got the line selected, nudge it upwards or downwards with the up and down arrow. And once the circle is over the horizontal line there, it's probably about right. Once you've got the top anchored, my next tip is that you use the height control rather than trying to drag this down. So right click the line, choose size and position. And over here we have the height control, and we can nudge the height up. And as we nudge it up, if you look to your left, the line is moving down. And we just keep nudging until it intersects with the top of the name box. The next thing to do is that I do want this line to be around about the center. And with an empty box, that's very difficult to tell. So what I suggest is that you insert some almost random letters. I'm going to insert long first name, long last name, and that just goes outside the boundary and of course is truncated. So that is displaying about 24 characters. So the middle is at about position 12, which happens to be above the M, which I actually got about right. That's just through practice. Then I'm going to take away this placeholder, and now I've got my first vertical line. The next thing I'm going to do is give myself the horizontal line. So again, I go to Insert, Illustrations, Shapes, and now I'm just going to drag along to the right here. Again, I'm changing the color, and now I'm going to position this into place. So I'm going to anchor the left side to the top of the vertical line. I'm just nudging left with the arrow key. And then in order to see that it's actually is intersecting, you have to click away, which is a little bit annoying, but it's still too short. And this time I'm going to use the width, click up, and I'm watching the width lengthen until it intersects. And that is exactly what I want. And once you've got your first set into place, it's easier then to use copy and paste. So I'm going to take my vertical line, I'm going to copy it, Control C, Control V. I'm just going to drag that to a reasonable position, and then I'm going to use the arrow keys to nudge it into place. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my perfect horizontal line, I'm going to get that into place, just dragging it down, and then using the arrows to nudge it into place. That is our first set of connector lines. I'm now going to use copy and paste as much as possible. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the horizontal line, Control C, Control V, and now I'm just going to move it, and I'm going to align it with the bottom of cell C4, and I'm using the arrows keys just to get that completely aligned at the middle there and intersecting with this ancestor box. So I'm going to Control C, Control V. This line, of course, is too long, but I simply anchor it to the top of the horizontal line. Up one, I think. That's it, that's perfect. And now I'm going to use the height control just to decrease the height until the bottom intersects with this ancestor box. I'm going to repeat this, copy, and that is perfect. So now I'm going to use an even nicer shortcut for copy and paste. Instead of having to copy the individual arrows, I'm going to copy the cells that contain the arrows, just a little bit less finicky. So I'm highlighting C4 and I'm copying this range of C4 down to C7. That'll include both of these arrows. Control C, put your cursor into C20, Control V, and voila. And I'll do the same for these ones, Control C, for that cell range there, cursor into C26 here, hit paste, and there. That was just a little bit faster. Okay, so rinse and repeat. Get the horizontal line in first, copy paste, align it with the grid line here. And now I am going to use my trick again to get a line meeting the middle of this cell. So I'm going to long first name, long last name. And I want my vertical line to be around about that M. So Control C, Control V for the vertical line. Get it roughly into place with the arrows. And now I'm going to shorten this line. And now I need to anchor the left of the horizontal line so that it intersects with the vertical line. And now I'm going to increase the width using the width control. There we go. Once we've got this into place, the lengths now of these lines are correct. So it's easier if we just Control C and Control V, the horizontal line, get that into place, nicely aligned, Control C and Control V, and get this into place, nicely aligned. And that is about right. I just take this away, the placeholder, and now I'm going to use that copy cells trick, the cell range, selecting 4 cells, I Control C that, just paste into D10, D18, D26, and then repeat for these 4 cells, copy and paste here, here, and here. So a little shortcut for the next set of connector lines is that the width of the horizontal line is going to be exactly the same as the one here, but the height is going to be exactly half the height. So I will take the vertical line first, Control C, Control V, get it roughly into place. So at the moment it's 0.5 centimeters, it needs to be 0.25. So I'm just going to type that directly into the height control. Click enter, and then just click away Don't use the arrow keys now because they'll change the height when it's currently selected. Click away from that and then click it again to select it. And now you can use the arrow keys to move it about down to intersect. So I don't think that's in the middle, but that doesn't matter because we're going to use the horizontal line to give us a guide. So Control C, Control V, move that into place, just move that over so that it intersects. With it intersecting, I now move the vertical line to get it about right. That is exactly right. So now that I've got those two, what I'll do is I'll copy the cell F and I'm copying cell G. I'm going to come down here and copy into F4. So they're kind of the wrong way around, but this horizontal line is correct. I just need to move the vertical line up. And this is where it gets a little bit finicky in terms of selecting it. There we go. Got it. And now I'm just moving it up, and that is correct. And for sure, I'm going to use my trick of copying the entire cell rather than messing around with these tiny little lines. Copy the range F1 and G1, and then to start pasting it down into F5, F9, and so on and so forth. And now to get the bottom lines, copy and paste, and that is that particular set of lines. So just one more set of lines to go. Hang on in there. I'm just going to show you what they look like because they're different to these other ones. So this is what they look like in a version I prepared earlier and in a set of templates that we have available for download. Unfortunately, because these lines are a lot smaller, they're a bit more finicky to work with. And if you're like me, I find these small lines quite difficult to select with my cursor and the mouse. So what I recommend is that you prepare the lines not in this tiny little space here where you won't be able to see what you're doing, but work over here in this area and then move the first set into place, and then it's copy and paste all the way. So we'll work in roundabout cell M2. And the first thing I'm going to do is give myself the horizontal line. So I'll just copy this line, which is going to be way too long, and I'll just line it up here. I'm going to size that line into the correct size. So right click on the line, size and position, and I'm going to set it to 0.5 centimeters, half a centimeter. I'll just type that just straight in, 0.5. I then want a vertical line. I'll copy and paste this one and just bring it over, get it reasonably aligned. This vertical line the height is 0.5. And then the shortest of the lines are the two forks in that trident, if we can call it a trident, given it's just a two-pronged fork. So I will take a line, bring it over, get it intersecting the arrow keys. That's about right. And now I will greatly reduce the width down to 0.2. And once I've got that guy done, I just copy him and move this one into place. And that is about right. Here is why I aligned the horizontal line along the bottom of cell M2. It's because in order to get this set of lines over here, I simply am unable to hold down the control key and copy all these four lines. I just can't select them with the mouse and the cursor. So the way I go about this is I copy cells M2 and M3. And before you do that, because I'm going to be copying and pasting M2 and M3 into I1 and I2, but you may or may not remember, it's been so long ago since we were doing the name cells, those cells have a space in them to ensure truncation of a very long name in cell H1. And I don't want to override that space with no space. So I'm just going to click into cell M2 and I'm going to put a space in there, click into cell M3 and put a space in there. Now I've got these set up. I'm going to highlight and select the range of cells M2 and M3, Control C to copy, place my cursor into cell I and Control V, and there you go. Took me a fair bit of experimentation to come up with this shortcut, so you're welcome. So I'm just going to copy and paste its turtles all the way down. And finally, we just get rid of, and there you have it, your 6th generation pedigree family tree. If you want the shortcut, we have a bundle of these 4 formats available in a single spreadsheet as a downloadable purchase for the price of a good cup of coffee. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to go grab that bundle and save yourself a bit of time.